Hi, I'm Dominic Hailstone, one of the concept artists on Alien Covenant. You're listening to Studio Yutani.
Right?
Okay. Plug us in.
Thank you.
I found it. Just short of Zeta 2 reticuli.
Registration reached the outer rim yet.
24609. Calling Antarctica traffic
The hell are we
control.
doing out
Can you
here?
read me? Over.
Some of you may have figured out we're not home yet. We're only halfway there. Mother's interrupted the course of our journey.
What?
Yeah. She's programmed to do that should certain conditions arise. They have.
Like what?
Seems she has intercepted a transmission of unknown origin. She got us up to check it out.
A transmission? Out here?
Yeah,
What kind of a transmission?
Human.
unknown.
Hello, this is Clara, but you can call me Mother, and welcome to Studio Yutani's Alien 4K review podcast. I've got with me again Dominic Hailstone. Hey Dom, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. Tired, but good. For those people who don't know, Dom worked on Alien Covenant doing a lot of the practical effects sculpting, but he also did some concept art, and he's also an accomplished director as well, who also does VFX. So he's just multi-talented guy, and that's why I wanted to talk to him about Alien today.
Yeah, it should be fun. I watched it last night, as you know. So, and that's the second time I've seen the new 4K version as well. So, yeah, looking forward to it.
Awesome. All right. So basically what we're going to be talking about is our experience of the film now compared to then. So what was your first experience of Alien, Dom?
Right. My first experience of Alien is very, very special to me, because it's pretty much the last time I was ever scared properly, and I really, that's why I think horror films are kind of for kids, especially ones with the maybe not Alien. I think I saw Alien probably too young, but I think if horror films serve their right purpose, they kind of scare you to the point where you don't really get scared much of things anymore. At least that is pretty much what happened to me, because I've definitely not seen a film since Alien that I've been scared as much. And I'm not even sure, I don't think I've ever been that scared in real life either, And I saw it about age, whenever it was on ITV in this country, I think I was about age 9 or 10, and my father recorded it on VHS, and it was on that night, I think, but I'd already gone to bed because I was young, and I knew he'd recorded it, and I snuck down and I watched it, probably at like 1% of the volume, so I was straining to listen to everything. And I remember I came down and I tiptoed down and I put the VHS in, and I was terrified that my parents were going to wake up and bust me. And and I sat there straining to listen to the sound, just turning it up enough so I could hear it, but also terrified that my parents were going to bust me. So, and I remember basically being entranced by the film from beginning to end, and by the end of it, the duvet that was wrapped around me was drenched in sweat. I mean, like you were ill, you know what I mean? Like that level of, and I'm not exaggerating. It was just wet. And I was like, oh my God, have I wet myself? Which I may well have done, because I can't remember being particularly conscious. I just remember being thrilled and just by the end of it, like, oh my God, I've come out of this dream or something. And, anyway, the next day, the other thing that's interesting about this is the next day I went to school and I talked to my friends about it to see if anyone had seen it, and my friend Charlie had seen it, and Charlie ended up doing the effects supervision on Alien Covenant, and he was one of the guys, along with my friend Ravi, who invited me to the film initially to meet Ridley and stuff. So it really is. Me and Charlie seeing that, and we would talk about the film afterwards. That day at school, just like, oh my God, what did it look like? We didn't. I remember not understanding what the creature looked like. We couldn't piece it together. We were trying to figure it out, and we knew it looked like a man at the end. But as far as we were concerned, it was shifting shape the entire time that you saw it. So anyway, that's the first time I saw it. What was your first time?
For me, I can barely remember it. I think I was about 4 years old. I watched it with my cousin Suzanne, who was really into horror films. I'd already been scared out of my mind with the movie Poltergeist the year before, so I'd been inoculated. When I watched Alien, I was completely entranced, and my focus was either completely on the cat or completely on the alien. Because, kids are obsessed with animals. The adults and the people didn't interest me at all. So just following the whole birth of the alien, I remember having a pillow. I was biting on the edge of the pillow, kind of holding it up near my head, and just seeing everything kind of over the pillow, so half of the screen was blocked out most of the time. But the things that I noticed the most were the movement in the Nostromo, because when you're a kid you get really affected by movement and sudden sounds and stuff like that. So I didn't know what was going to happen or when things were going to happen, and that kind of stayed with me for the whole time. And the reveal of Ash was particularly shocking for me. Because that wasn't even a concept that I could even comprehend.
No. I had the same thing. You're like, well, what? Did he change? I thought he'd become an alien or something. I couldn't get my head around it, because robots hadn't been shown to look like that. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe I'd seen Westworld, but,
I was more familiar with robots from Lost in Space and things like that.
Exactly.
Or Doctor Who, So the introduction of Ash as a person, I hadn't seen Westworld, I don't think, when I was that little. But it was just something completely new for me. And later watchings of it, it's so obvious that Ash is a robot now, rewatching it again and again. But when I was a child, it completely took me by surprise. So I really enjoyed that reveal.
That's one of the things I noticed watching it yesterday. Actually, is that one of the introductions to Ash is him decoding numbers on a screen. And he's literally doing the Matrix thing. He's looking at the numbers on the screen and telling the other people what's going on. And Tom Skerritt's character and John Hurt's character, they're looking over the shoulder. And I wonder, I'm like, do they know that he's an android? And I'm like, do some of the crew know that he's an android and some of them don't? Do you know what I mean? And because in Alien, I mean, there is this class division of the characters that I find really interesting. Again, watching it yesterday, Yaphet Kotto's character goes why don't you freeze it? Why aren't we putting him in hibernation? And he says it about 3 or 4 times, and today you'd get a script note like that and they go, you can't do that, he's just repeating dialogue. But by repeating the dialogue, that he's not being listened to,
it's really effective.
He's never been listened to, and he's right. And what I liked about that film is that Ripley's character, who is kind of at war with those, Harry Dean Stanton and him, they're kind of on the same side, and that maybe she doesn't know that Ash is an android, but that the top people do, and
that made me wonder, because there's one point where Ash is sitting in Parker's seat, and Parker's like, "You're sitting in my seat," and Ash goes, "Oh, sorry," and Yaphet Kotto comes over and he brushes the seat, I'm just gonna get this android dirt off here so I can sit down. He's already immediately thinking of Ash is lower than him, even though he's the science officer. So that makes me wonder. But at the same time, like, he acts like, you know, Parker acts surprised later on that, you know, Ash is an android. Maybe he couldn't confirm it.
Yeah. But it's one of those things. It's like, I wonder if they'd written it so that some people just don't know and some people do. You know what I mean? Cause very clever film on the class divide, because it doesn't hammer anything home to you, but it's, you know, there's the company at the top and the little people below, you know, and that is all the way through all the Alien films, isn't it? You know, but that kind of just revealing that just through very kind of banal character dialogue I think that's great. You know, it's so much better than nowadays where they have to spell everything out. You know?
Yeah, agreed.
And, you know, going back to what you're saying when you're watching it and you're saying you're just focused on the alien and the cat. I mean, I remember having a similar experience in that you don't really identify with anyone in Alien. You know, you're just amongst some people, you know, that are believable. You know, you don't, because at the beginning of the film, you certainly don't identify with Sigourney. You know, if anything, you'd identify with John Hurt's character who gets the thing on his face. You know?
Yeah.
But Dan O'Bannon, you know, he said that he's got an amazing screenwriting book, you know, and he said this in his book. He goes, you don't need a lead character because you can hand the lead character to anyone you want at any point in the story, you know. And so it's kind of skipping. This is a bit of sort of film theory, but it's sort of skipping, you know, at the beginning you're trying to find who you relate to, and then they kind of kill the characters that you would relate to. Do you know what I mean? And then it hops over to Sigourney, you know, and he did the same thing in Return of the Living Dead, you know, that he wrote. You know, it starts with the guys in the morgue, you know, and they're dead by, like, you know, 3/4 of the way through, you know, and you're sort of watching a gang of punks. But anyway, that's just, it's my time. I'm kind of a bit obsessed with Dan O'Bannon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think he's really interesting. I think he's really, he's a sort of fountainhead, you know, he's like, you know, he wrote the comic that Blade Runner was based on, you know, with Mobius. Yeah. And, you know, he wrote Total Recall. He was always involved with Total Recall. You know, he was involved with Dune. He was involved with Alien. You know, there's Return of the Living Dead. That, you know, he pretty much invented running zombies, you know, or at least a different type of zombie. You know, I'm not a fan of running zombies, but I like his zombies, you know. Yeah. And yeah, he's one of those people you don't really hear about so much. But I think without him, especially in Alien, and with, you know, you wouldn't have a lot of these films, you know. And Dark Star obviously is the birth of Alien, and I think that's pretty much, you know, I see more of him in that than John Carpenter, you know. You know, so. But anyway, I think that's, anyway, I'm sort of fascinated by him. And I think he's really funny. Like, whenever you read him in interviews, he's sort of bitter. He's like a Harlan Ellison kind of type, you know.
People kind of take his personality the wrong way. Like, they see him as very pretentious, but I don't see that when I read his interviews or even, like, watch some of his commentary, listen to some of his commentary for the movie and stuff. I can see him as a very passionate person who kind of got a raw deal with Alien, at least in the way that he wanted it to be done. Yeah. You know, it's never nice as an artist to have your work stolen from you and then someone else claim credit. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Well, he just wasn't used to the film world. You know what I mean? You know, that's the thing. He just wanted control. And I guess, you know, that's I mean, the thing is, everyone who comes into the film industry is like that. They all want to be, I can do this, and, you know, it'd be brilliant if I could, you know, make this. But that's not the way it works. You know, it works through collaboration and, you know, I mean, the stuff that Walt Hill's screenplay for Alien is amazing. You know, it's better than Dan O'Bannon's one. You know, the structure, he's brilliant at structure, Dan O'Bannon. You know, but everything else is kind of cheesy. Star Beast, it's really cheesy.
Yeah.
But Walter Hill's stuff is just, he's one of the best screenwriters I've come across. He's very, terse, he gets to the point.
Yeah.
And it's, I like his films a lot, yeah. So.
What did you notice with the new remastered edition compared to, say, previous viewings on different medias like VCR or DVD? Was there anything that kind of stood out to you?
Right. It looks fucking amazing, there are a few, I could just say there are a few sort of negative things. I'm not a fan of, grain removal on films. People find grain distracting, but I find grain removal software can be distracting. And there are a few tiny bits in this where I found the grain removal distracting. Generally, though, I think it's one of the best transfers I've seen. I'm not a fan of UHD videos because the transfers can be very, they're either not made for my television, which I don't understand how that's possible, or they've just fucked it up, you know what I mean? Because, for instance, the new version of The Fog the picture is so dark. It's like if you're in any kind of lit room, it's almost impossible to watch, So, but Alien looks great, and I'd say it's on a par with the sort of Christopher Nolan transfers or 2001 or but a few of the others. No, they've taken real care over it. And the thing that struck me most, I think, was the dimensionality of the image, how 3D it looked, and how much detail you could see in the background in the dark, of the set. There were things in the sets that I'd never seen before. And the other thing, sorry. Yeah.
One of the things that I noticed when you're first panning across the Nostromo before the crew wakes up is I could actually read the text on the buttons. The 2 buttons near a door, and I'd always seen it as blue and red, and it was just too bright, not clear enough. But in this version, I could actually read the text on there, and I was like, oh, there's writing on it. Little things like the name tag behind Dallas, I can see a bit more clearer. I could see the dirt on surfaces and stuff like that, which has made it a bit more made the film seem a bit more real and tactile and lived in. As for cassette futurism, that sort of aesthetic, which is now used ever since Alien, I think it really shows how well the effects team did in making the set look worn. And not as polished as, say, Star Wars or something like that.
No, it's also quite understated, the cinematography. It's quite, it is, it's obvious to say that it's dark, but even the bright points are quite muted, and I'm very glad they haven't punched it up, because I've seen this film probably about 30 times in the cinema, and to my memory it looks a lot like this, and I really don't. The only other one there's a 4K of the Evil Dead, the original Evil Dead, that I just adore, because it's a 4K of a 16mm print, and that looks as good as this does to me, as far as my memory of it seeing it in the cinema. And I've seen Evil Dead probably 30 times as well.
Wow, I'm gonna have to look at that version.
It's so grungy, and it just seems like they've gone, it's 16mm, and I love it. I love it. And it's when they kind of artificially brighten things up or change the balance of the image, especially because UHD uses, these sort of lights underneath the panel of your TV to brighten them up, I think sometimes it can just look terrible, I don't even pretty good transfers. Like there's a transfer of Terminator 2 that's, I'd say, pretty good, but in some parts it just looks wrong. You know, the skin looks really waxy, and it just looks, it doesn't look like film or anything. It looks like it's a new digital sort of thing. But you don't get that here. That's the thing, is I think it looks very faithful here, and I think, it's good.
Yeah, I'm just looking at like the outer texture of the ship here and the different colors. Like I can even see like the definition of the ash on the end of Lambert's cigarette, which I couldn't really see before. So it's fairly impressive what they've done. When I went to go watch it in the cinema, I went to the Astor, and they had a 70mm of the film, so it was true 4K, and the restored version. So, I don't think it was a restored version. It was like 70mm original, and it was one of the best conditioned ones that they had. It
was in film.
You're
talking about.
And watching that and watching this, it's very like similar, but obviously, you know, there's a bit more detail in something which is like a Blu-ray at home. But I could say that the lighting and everything is very similar that you would experience in like a movie theater, and it hasn't been the contrast hasn't been overclocked too much, but the colors seem still quite rich.
Yeah, exactly. The color is great, I think. Yeah, as you said, they haven't punched it up too much, but there were definitely scenes at the end when it's strobing that I think I haven't seen it look like that. Just in terms of precision and just the effect on me. I thought it was like watching a different film at some points, which is exactly what I want from a transfer, really. Well, that impact anyway, that sort of feeling. But when you see stuff in the cinema, though, there's a softening of the image because it's going through on a projector, but also like you have to take into account the projector's lens, the brightness of the bulb, and there's a sort of weave that goes on as the film runs through that can cause a softening of the image, which is why that when you scan a film, obviously you're scanning the negative, you're not scanning a projection of it. So everything becomes a lot sharper, and the film can look a lot better. Although there is still a bit of a loss of color resolution. But most people wouldn't be able to tell, especially nowadays. I mean, I can't. I'm amazed. I love having this sort of thing in my house. It's like a dream come true.
What's your setup at home? Just out of curiosity, for your TV and player.
It's Sony. To be honest, I can't remember the SKU. It's it's like a 65-inch Sony. I can't remember. It's not an OLED. It's just a standard. It's a standard like LCD or whatever they have now. And but it's very good. I'm a bit obsessed with. Well, I'm not that obsessed, but I looked at the OLED and I looked at my TV side by side, and there wasn't much in it. It was about 5-10% difference. So I just didn't think it was worth the extra money.
Yeah, I was very lucky. My mum, as a present for my husband, I guess it was on his birthday that she ended up buying this. It's a Samsung 4K 100-inch LCD TV.
Oh, wow.
So when I watch it, it's in true UHD. So I've got a special UHD Blu-ray player just this year. So previously when I'd been watching it, it was just the normal Blu-ray. So it's noticeably much clearer. I feel like the frames per second is more noticeable. How things look hyper realistic, you could reach out and touch it. Whereas when I watch it, I've got several copies of Alien. I bought it on iTunes as well. So when I'm watching it now on my computer screen, and I've got a pretty decent LCD screen, but it's still not as good as the TV. But you can still see that sort of detail. It's kind of retained its graininess, I think, on a lower quality screen, which is kind of cool because like that's kind of what I want. I don't want it to be too slick. It is an old film, so it's supposed to look that way.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's a very well shot film, you know. So, yeah, I think graininess is acceptable, and that's what I mean about when it's. You can see the grain reduction in it. It sort of annoys me because I don't think it. I think it has an acceptable level of grain. That movie, you know, it's not too bad. It's not Ghostbusters. I'm not sure if you ever saw that. You know,
yeah, I have.
on Blu-ray, you know, it's like.
Oh no, on Blu-ray, I haven't watched it. I remember watching it on like a really old TV, the ones with the wood panel on the side, but I haven't watched it on like a.
Oh, the Blu-ray is sort of notorious for it just looks like you're watching, like the Blu-ray's broken, you know, it's like, it's so grainy. Yeah, it's weird, but, yeah, it's not like that.
This episode was brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Thank you to Timothy Cullen, Benjamin Scottford, P. Wayland, Michael Andrews, Sarah Hall, Project Acheron, Daniel Cripper, Zachary Rice, Lady Anne, Zeno Park, Georgina Gray, and JB. Without your support, none of this would be possible. Thank you.
So where are you now? Whereabouts are you now in the film?
So, for those people who don't know, I've got Alien playing in the background, and Dallas, Lambert, and Kane are just walking across LV-426, and there's that what looks like a moon in the background, but it's been famously said that it was Ridley who put a spotlight there because the set seemed incomplete and they didn't know how to light it. So he's like, put a spotlight there, put some fog in there, and then it looks like they were on an alien planet. It was perfect. And he can kind of like see things even before shooting it, which is a credit to his eye. It's very good.
He does that, yeah. He's like an art director, you know. So, if you're on set, I can't remember, I'm not sure if anyone's ever worked it out, but I mean, it's a fairly standard way of working to sort of ask for more material than you're going to shoot, but that's sort of what Ridley does as far as art direction goes. So he gets his, you know, all the stuff out that he likes, and then he gets to position it and arrange it, you know. So he tells, I think more than anyone, he's telling his stories through props and allusions to other things, you know.
Yeah.
To, you know, classical themes or whatever. He really likes that. He is obviously a very visual director, but I think people maybe underrate him in terms of like how he's communicating.
Yeah, as a ex-art student, I can't say that I know a hell of a lot, probably at a high school level, but I've gone out and looked at stuff myself, and I really enjoy his type of film, where there's a lot more being said in the background visually than what you can kind of have on screen, like being literally told to other people. I like this sort of silence nearly that Dallas, Lambert, and Kane have, just walking up to the ship and going into it. You know, it's very similar to what we experienced in Covenant, walking through the engineer city. Everyone gets in going, you know, why aren't they talking to each other? They could have said something. And it's like, well, no, they're kind of in awe, like anyone else would be.
Yeah, I think
encountering something. Yeah, yeah. Like, what's wrong with you?
Well, yeah. I mean, no, I do. No, because I think they would. I think that they are saying things in Alien. You know, they are sort of communicating, and they are. I think you
true.
can.
There is banter.
there is banter, so like, and there's also a certain sense of frustration of like, well, hang on, why can't we? It's very clever, like having tension where there isn't any. You've got this long walk up to his death, and like the people on the other side can't quite hear what's going on, So, but I do. It's something you said that I did. One of the things I noticed watching it yesterday was as you said, like quite how sort of silent they are with each other.
Yeah.
And, Sigurni's character, when they say there's like 10 months left, and she's like, oh, God. It's like they've just all had enough of each other. And they never, although they bicker, you never feel there's a beef amongst them. That you feel that they're all together. They're just stuck in a bad situation. But I like the fact it is very chilled, and it shows you everyone's kind of in limbo, and then they sort of go to hell, don't they, and bring, but they're just like, why have we been woken up, and why, like, oh God, another 10, it's just that, I think everyone can kind of relate to that.
Yeah, being on a long haul with anyone, I guess, especially in a tight spot like the Nostromo.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then being, it's this thing of like being woken up and then forced to work, and you're like, you know what I mean? Like, do I have to?
It's a Monday, no matter what day it actually is right now. For them, it's a Monday, and they're like, fuck this. Yeah, exactly. They're like, forced to work, and then they have to, like, not only that, but it's like the work they didn't want to do is killing them, and they have to do more work to stop it killing them, It's sort of, and then finally she gets back to go back to sleep again, but it's that's what I mean. Those things are quite primal, and so I think you identify with things like that much more than you would, like, if the studio executive said, you've got to, make them wear the hippest clothes or whatever. That's true.
Just that Monday feeling is enough. But yeah, it's brilliant. But anyway, we are here to talk about how brilliant it is.
That's it. Is there any part that you noticeably enjoyed more with the restored version of the 4K?
Yeah, the end where she's traveling through the, she's escaping Nostromo. Just the strobing, and the fact when the strobes lit up, I could see a lot of detail that I couldn't see before, because before it was just blown out. I felt it gave the film a different feel almost, and it felt more kinetic, and I felt it was much more immersive. So it was definitely that bit.
For me, it was definitely Ash trying to kill Ripley, because I could so clearly see the porn on the wall a bit more.
That's what my friend said.
And it just played into that whole like psychosexual murder fantasy that Ash is playing out.
It's horrible. Yeah, because when you're a kid, you don't get that at all. You don't even notice it's a porno mag, and you don't even notice it's a magazine, because I think on VHS you're just like, what's he doing?
It looks like he just trying to shove a cardboard tube down her throat.
Yeah, exactly. It's just very weird. But I like that in Ridley's films. I like it when he does those weird things.
Yeah, someone had pointed out to me the other day that when David in Alien Covenant forces a kiss onto Daniels, a roll of paper falls onto the ground. Even though it's not intentional, or may or may not have been intentional, it kind of like is a little bit of a nod to like Ash and his little roll of paper.
The action figure, he should definitely come with a porno.
I wish they would make the action figure, but NECA just don't like Alien Covenant.
No, I meant the Ash, the Ash.
The Ash figure. Yeah, I just got a postage stamp and rolled that. and gave that to him. I've got a little picture of it. I'll send it to you.
Oh, okay. Cool. That's all right.
Kane's just reached the egg room, and I really love how the blue light, which they borrowed from The Who, is interacting with the smoke. It looks really like you can see the little blooms of smoke coming up.
Yeah. It's a weird one because I remember, like, I mean, I do think it looks cool, and I can take it for what it is, but I remember seeing that even age 10 going, that's a laser. You know, I'd been to a disco by that point. And I thought it was cheap, you know. I just wanted to say, if anyone's into miniatures who's listening to this, the miniatures look incredible on 4K. Don't you think, Clara? The shots outside. That's another thing that struck me watching it yesterday. Just how good all the miniatures look, and how I just got a kick out of going, that's a model, you know.
I'm friends with Charles Lippincott on Facebook, and he has been posting all of these behind the scenes alien photos in an effort to start his book, which is due out, I think, later this year. And it's just amazing seeing, like, all of the stuff that, like, you know, making of the props and like the actors being prepared for the shot, and Ridley standing on the set, you know, directing, you know, Veronica Cartwright or Sigourney Weaver. It's just amazing to kind of see the film and then see that and go, wow. Like, for me, Alien doesn't feel like a film. It feels like it's really happening. Even like the Overmorph opening up. And I know that Ridley's hands are in there and he's moving the guts around and stuff, but still, it just looks so good.
Yeah, I mean, there's the way it's filmed is interesting because, I mean, you know, Chris Nolan does this, you know, he films it like it's happening he won't give you any extra information, you know. So it puts you, like an Alien, you know, it puts you right at the point of, you know, that it's happening. Like when they come in from the ship, when Kane comes back and it just cuts to the medical scene, doesn't it? You know, there's no scene of them arguing, after she opens the door, you know, after Ash opens the door opens and it just cuts to them removing the helmet. You don't see him, you know, so you're behind the action as the audience, you know, you're trying to play catch up, and you're like, oh my God, what's going on, you know, and most films in the 70s like did this, you know, but films nowadays, they don't do it as much, you know, they all tell you kind of what's going to happen and then play tricks on you, you know what I mean? Sort of,
yeah.
And you feel not. It really works for Alien because you can't see the future. You don't know what's going to happen, and it's constantly wrong footing you. Whereas, you know, a lot of films today that you really, I don't know, they make you feel safe just by the way that they tell the story, you know. And you know, with Alien, the way it's filmed is it helps the emotions that the story, you know, wants to get from you, which is horror and, you know, tension and, you know, fear and things like that. In a way that something like Blade Runner, this is why, you know me, I don't particularly like Blade Runner. So Blade Runner doesn't, you know, Blade Runner is like all about the pictures that you're seeing and the sound, you know. So for me at the end, you know, when Harrison Ford is doing the chase, it's not exciting at all. You know, I don't get excited by that at all, but I feel like I should be. I feel like I should be excited and terrified for Harrison Ford in the same way that I would be for Ripley. But in Alien, I definitely am. You know, I'm totally in there in the moment, you know, and that's why I think it's, I mean, it's just a perfect film. I don't know. Anyway, I'm waffling. Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah.
One of the things I really appreciated in watching the remastered is also the med lab. I never noticed so much. There's so much detail, like where they've stuck things on. I've noticed, like, oh, you know, like that's a pool filter, and you know that's part of a coffee machine. But it's so effective, like the sort of kit bashing that they've done with, you know, putting the whole scene together to fill it up to make it look like there's so many parts to it.
But also, it's not supposed to kind of look real, like, you know, like Mother's room. You know, it's just all a bunch of lights, and you're like, that's just silly. You know, it's not. You know, it's like a Christmas tree in there. You know, like there's no point. You know, if you know anything, and I'm sure Ridley wouldn't care. He'd just be like, no, it looks good. It's not about, you know, it's not about that. You know, it's about something else. So, and there's lots of examples of.
Oh, sorry, Dom, I've lost you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you're back. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, you were saying about Mother's room.
Yeah, like Mother's room is just a bunch of lights. You know, it's not functional looking. So, you know, if you think about it, it's nonsense, but it looks great. So, and I'm sure Ridley wouldn't care about that. I doubt he'd care. So, I mean, not that I'm going to put words in his mouth, but it's a kind of dumb idea, you know. It's a sort of like, are you going into a room? It's a computer room. It's just full of lights. It's like the sort of thing you do in a you know, 50s movie, you know.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is a kind of 50s movie, which I guess is like, it's actually why I didn't mind Prometheus. Everyone hated Prometheus, and to me it was very 50s science fiction.
Yeah, with the design of the spacesuits and...
Yeah. So, you know, I like that. I like that sort of thing. Just some people and some, you know, as you said, lost in space or something. It's, I've always just liked that. I like, you know, any film where someone lands on a planet, I'm quite up for.
They've just cut into the face hugger, and I can see the so-called acid melt through the deck, and I really like, you can see like the detail of the bubbling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I even noticed there's like a sticker with some sort of like code number next to a radio where Dallas is holding onto the door.
Yeah.
Just like little things like that. Like there's just stickers everywhere that I never really noticed before.
Yeah, this must be like heaven for you.
Oh, it is.
You're like a detailed pack rat, aren't you? You're just like, yeah. That's, yeah.
Is this that you said that there's parts of this film that kind of annoy you with the kind of remastering that has been a bit more noticeable? What would you improve if you had the chance to do it?
Oh God, no, I just take the grain off. I mean, it's literally like 2 or 3 shots. There was just a couple of things, right? They always do this. It's the same with Die Hard. There's one shot in the Die Hard new HD thing, you know, it's brilliant, but like, it's like someone forgot the setting on one shot, you know, like they took their eye off the ball, you know. So there's about 2 or 3 shots. I can't remember what they are. They're definitely in the dark scenes. But there's not much. I am nitpicking. I think the transfer is great. You know, I honestly, I think it's brilliant. I urge anyone who's a fan of the film to buy a HD, you know, 4K TV and a 4K Blu-ray player and the film and watch it. Because then they'll have a perfect copy of the film, pretty much. You know?
Yeah. I read a review by Bill Hunt, and he says that there are some of the director's cut material appears to be upsampled from the 2003 scan of the footage, likely done in 2K. So maybe like in some, it depends on which cut you were looking at, I guess.
Yeah.
It'll show that sort of like detail is not as good as the others, and maybe that's what you noticed.
Yeah, the thing is, I remember kind of noticing it now when I saw the Blu-ray in the first place. I remember thinking, oh, this is just, they've done the best with an old bit of footage they found, rather than, and so I just thought, I didn't notice that it was upscaled, but I did notice, I'm not a fan of that bit, so I sort of turn off. I did watch it, you know what I mean? I was kind of, I understand that particular section, I love the idea of it, but there is something about the pacing of it that feels very staged, and the rest of the film doesn't feel staged at all. So it feels very much like it's funny. It's kind of like the only part of the film where it gets sentimental, apart from the cat. And it's like, I understand the cat, but like I don't think that's this film. I think this film needs to be brutal.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it is brutal. She's killing her friend, but yeah.
So you don't like the director's cut? You prefer the theatrical?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. Just for that.
I'm a sucker for the director's cut, just because I like the extended. It's not really extended. It's even less than what the actual footage is. But I mean, like, if you added the deleted footage in, I prefer that version.
Yeah. No, fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, you never know with these things. Sometimes it's like you don't know if it's like just because you're used to watching a film, or if it's actually better. There are definitely versions. I'm sure there's versions of films that I think are better, that are longer, but usually, I mean, it's like The Wicker Man. I love The Wicker Man. The Wicker Man. The Wicker Man. But I don't like the long version. I think it adds nothing to it. The thing is, I don't like long films, so I can't. You're gonna lose.
You don't have the attention span for it, Tom.
No, I don't. No, I mean, if it's Seven Samurai or like, 2001 or Lawrence of Arabia, or someone who knows how to make long films, I'm all for it. But I don't generally. I don't think. I don't know. It seems more like a fashion nowadays to make long films.
Yeah.
So,
it's a bit of a James Cameron thing to do.
Yeah, and exactly. Yeah.
Or Denis Villeneuve, but he's forgiven for Blade Runner, but I know you don't like Blade Runner.
No, Blade Runner's alright. I mean, I don't. I mean, the thing is, I'd like to wind people up about it, but I don't. But I don't. It's a good film. It's a very good film. It just doesn't grab me, and that's the thing. It's like I can fucking intellectualize all about it all I want, but it's if a film doesn't grab you, or if it does, you'll make every excuse for it, or either way, won't you?
Yeah, that's true.
But it's just your personality. It's nothing to do about it.
On behalf of Studio Utani, I would like to thank our community supporters: Perfect Organism Podcast, AVP Galaxy, Nostromo Files, LV426 Discord, Aliens Gateway Station Facebook group, and Project Acheron on YouTube.
I'm watching the part in Alien now where Ash is conversing with Ripley, and he is looking at the screen. He's kind of looking at the progression of the growth of the alien inside Kane. So, like, watching it again last night, you could see, like, Ash, he's a robot. He can make calculations of how quickly this thing is growing. He knew that something was going to happen.
Yeah.
You can see him the way he's watching Kane across the meal table, kind of like waiting and waiting, kind of like when is this Jack in the Box going to come out?
No, exactly. Don't touch it. Yeah, totally. It's really it's a very good. It's very interesting performance. Ian Hart. I mean, they're all really good. The one that I love is Yaphet Kotto's one, because you can see him winding the other actors up, actually winding them up. You know what I mean? Because he's a nutcase. I'm not sure if you know anything about him. I think he thinks he's Jesus, or he used to, you know what I mean? So he's, you know, he's clearly this madman. Every film that you see him in, you can see him kind of winding people up. He's brilliant. Yeah. But they're all, oh God, they're all great.
Yeah. This is shot, I haven't been able to find it. I remember watching it ages ago. I've gone through all of my footage that I've got of Alien, but I couldn't find it. I don't know whether I blinked or something, but there's this scene where they've got Kane in the med bay, and he's still got the face hugger on his face, and they're kind of panning up from the bottom to the top and kind of ending on the crown of his head.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing scene. It kind of looks like rays of light. All the lines are like coming out from his body, and there's a very like, I don't know, very artsy sort of like edition, but they cut it from the film, and I've been trying to find it on the extra footage, but I can't find it anywhere. But I've got it playing over in my head again and again. I can't find it, so I don't know whether I've watched like some sort of like fan edit somewhere that added it, and then it's not actually available, or maybe I'm like imagining it. I don't know.
Well, memory is a funny thing, you know. It's sort of, there are definitely scenes in films that I've imagined. When you reimagine something, apparently you replace the memory that was there. So, you know, it's like Chinese whispers. So the more that you do it, the more, you know, if you haven't, you might be imagining something. I remember, oh God, what was it? It was at the end of like, There Will Be Blood. I thought that Daniel Day-Lewis sort of literally, I think he says, I'm done, you know, but I thought he literally took a bow, you know. In the cinema, I was like, oh, that's brilliant. He goes, I'm done. And he literally takes a theatrical bow, and it's like a curtain closing, you know. And then I watch the film again. He doesn't do that at all. So, you know, I don't know how much weed I'd smoked, but it was, you know, it was, no, but you know what I mean? But your memory does do those things. But that's kind of the impression that I got. I got that. It's like when people say there's blood in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you know.
Yeah.
It's like there is hardly any blood there. There is, you know, it's a pretty sanitized film, but you imagine it. You imagine all the chainsaw kind of cutting people up.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. I mean, Alien is very like that, because I mean, you probably know how many seconds of the alien are in the film.
Yeah, like hardly anything at all. It's quite
what,
surprising.
10 seconds? Yeah. So everything is done by your imagination. Yeah, I mean, it can't be more than 20 seconds, I think. Oh, it probably is. It is. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you feel that this remastered version is worth getting for anyone who already owns, say, a Blu-ray or another copy of Alien?
I think I've already sort of told you how much I like it and how I mean, look, if you've got the money for it, go for it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm of the position I don't really, I understand when people are, oh God, they want me to buy it again, you know, whatever. But I think that's an intellectual argument, and it's kind of, it's just like, I mean, what they're doing is going, how much do you love this? How much do you love Alien? You know? And sorry.
How many copies do you have?
Probably about 5, I think. Yeah. I mean, I've got 2 on Blu. I mean, because I got the box set recently, you know what I mean, which has got the older version in it anyway. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I've got it about 5 times. But this one is, you know, all I'd say is there are some 4K versions, like the Carpenter 4Ks, where you can see they deliberately like compress the image, so it's not, you know, they're not utilizing all the information on the disc. This is a little bit compressed, but it's really, really good, and it's about as close, you know, when it's moving, you're not. It's as close as you'll get to a cinema print, and
Yeah.
I don't think, unless you're getting really nitpicky, I don't think you want anything much better than this. Especially if you're like me and, you know, you're sort of 45 and you haven't, you know what I mean? When you were a kid, this was a dream. This was, so I don't care. The thing is, I just don't care about those arguments about, like, oh, they're trying to screw us again. I'm like, screw me. You know, like, I get to own this film. I get to own it and put it on my wall whenever I want. I don't care. Like, honestly, I'm very, very happy. The thing I'm most happy about this 4K thing is they're starting to put out films that, like Amazon especially. I think there's one person working at Amazon they've got prints of like the Street Fighter, which is it's a Hill film, you know, like Hard Times, I think it's called up there. Charles Bronson movie, which is his first film, you know, and it's in 4K, and you can't get that on disc, but it's on Amazon. And I think Lawrence of Arabia is up there in 4K, and
it is.
Yeah, you know what I mean. There's a few. Body Double, you know, Brian De Palma's movie. You know, and that's what I like, is actually getting to see all these old films, much like The Evil Dead. I get to see 16mm prints, you know, or I get to see the full character of the movie, you know, and kind of how it looked in the cinema, or the best it can look. So no, all those things are really excite me. Yeah, what doesn't excite me is people trying to tart up the movie so it looks better, or they try and make it look better than it did. Or
how do you feel about the Star Wars movies having the CG and VFX updated?
You know, I mean, I feel the same way about the Ridley. It's like they're businessmen. You know, I don't think the director's cut of Alien is the director's cut. You know, I think he put it in there because there's some more money to be made. And I think with George Lucas, it's the same. It might be that he can't stop tinkering. I mean, with George Lucas, it's a weird thing. I've seen this like throughout my life. It's like if people can't move forward, they move backwards. You know, they start playing things that they thought they could fix. You know, because they're scared of moving forward. So I think that's part of it. You know, I think with George Lucas, you know, it was just like, oh, well, you know, part of it, he's probably justifying it by thinking, oh, okay, if I can I'll play around with some digital stuff, and then I'll be able to use this technology, you know, in my future films.
Yeah.
But I don't really see the point. You know what I mean?
Because I've seen people at least talk about Aliens, because you can see the painted backgrounds, which I actually didn't know that they were painted onto glass and then just wiped away. Wayne Hag had to tell me that, because I don't know. I'm too young.
Matt.
And like they just it made me kind of angry when people said that Aliens needed the background updated, because like you have no idea how much time someone put into painting that. It may not look good now, but you know. Yeah,
but also it's kind of like they don't understand what sort of a filmmaker James Cameron is. You know, like you know, like I watched Terminator last week, and there's like, you know, like this shot of like Arnie, and he's replacing his eye in the mirror, you know, and he cuts away his cornea, and it's fucking gross, you know, and it's sort of like, you know, it's like a Lucio Fulci movie, you know.
Yeah.
And for like a couple of seconds of that, and you would have been like, ugh, you know, you'd recoil. But he holds on it, and then he shows you like the puppet of Arnie like putting on the glasses, you know, and it looks cheesy as hell, you know, it looks totally fake, and it's probably like 8 seconds long, the shot, 10 seconds long. But when I saw it as a kid, I did not know that was a puppet at all. It didn't even occur to me, especially on video. I didn't even think you could, maybe you can't tell. And there was a large part of James Cameron that is giggling that he got one over on you. And like he did something that was really cheap. And he's like, you didn't even know it was an effect, you know, like a magician, you know.
Yeah.
And you can see that countless times through his films. You know, there are mistakes that are in shot, but he just lets them sit there. You know, he's not concerned with those little things. And there's, sorry to go on, but there's a good story that illustrates this. But I think it's Alfred Hitchcock. That he was shooting something. The dailies came back, and someone came in like, Mr. Hitchcock, you know, there's been a terrible mistake. And he's like, what? And you know, because you know that 3-minute, you know, dolly shot that we did yesterday. And he's like, yeah. And he goes, well, there was a labourer sitting in the background, like eating his sandwiches, you know. And then Alfred Hitchcock, like, when they went to the editing room, they looked at it, and he goes, well, yeah, but it's in the background, you know. And the person says, aren't you worried? And he's like, well, no, because they should be paying attention here. You know, and it's in the film. This guy is, you know, eating his sandwiches is in the film, and you don't notice. And there is, you know, the amount of films that you watch, the more you see that. And yeah, I think with James Cameron, it's that it's about the tricks, and you know, he made that film for nothing. It's a low budget movie. I don't want it to be. That's part of the magic of it, that he pulled it out of his arse for nothing, and everyone worked there. You know, it's still, that Alien Queen still blows me away. You know, how inventive. It's amazing. You know, so.
I'm in the practical effects group on Facebook, and someone had circled in the background one of the puppeteers. You can see him behind the Queen, and someone else goes, oh shit, that's kind of ruined the movie for me. And another person chimes up and goes, no, I just like to think it's like some sort of half-cocooned colonist in the background. But I didn't notice it for years. I've been watching that movie God knows how many times, and I never noticed it.
Yeah, but to me, those things, there's a scientist called Richard Feynman, and he said about, like, you know, someone said, like, why do you have to know everything about everything, you know, and can't you just, like, look at a flower and see the beauty of the flower? And he goes, look, the beauty of the flower is apparent to me, but it becomes more beautiful that when I know that the flower, how it pollinates and the bees come in, and, you know, how it gets its water, and it becomes more interesting after that, you know. And that's how I feel about films. It's that I already know they're fake. They never convinced me they were real. They might make my heart race, you know, at their best, but I come out of the cinema and I don't think, like, oh my God, I don't think, you know, that's what they're there for. They're there for experiencing things that, you know, it's like Joe Pesci in Goodfellas, you know. You know, it gives you a chance to experience Joe Pesci in Goodfellas without actually meeting him, you know. You know what I mean? You're like, I can get all the fun of hanging out with him without, I don't actually want to meet that guy, but I want to hang out with him, you know. So like, that's kind of how I feel about films. It's like the argument that, like, the illusion is broken is sort of, I mean, I kind of get it, but the illusion for me gets broken. The first thing that breaks the illusion is bad acting. So,
oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
I've seen a lot of bad acting before, and you're right. It's so obvious that they're looking at the camera and they're kind of talking a bit louder, things like that. Kind of reminds me of Alien Resurrection.
Yeah.
Even though I love that film, I love how corny it is. But yeah, you're right. It just takes you out of the experience.
No, exactly. You've got to, he's, it's odd though, because I loved, City of Lost Children. I think it's an incredible film. And I liked Delicatessen a lot, and I liked, you know, I was really looking forward to Alien Resurrection. But, anyway. The less said about, no expert on that film. I've seen it once.
Oh, yeah. Is there anything that you... do you think this version of the remastered edition in like 4K, 8K or Ultra HD or whatever it is now, do you think it can be improved on? Like, I feel like this is as good as it's going to get without actually putting you into the film.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it could definitely be improved on, but it's only in like the compression of it's just you can get you can get a slightly better image and better color, representation, but that's it. There isn't, and the thing is, there isn't going to be much in it, the 8K one that will come out in, 5 years time or 4 years time or whatever won't be, it won't blow you away. It's just, all these things are diminishing returns. It's the same with video game consoles. They're still trying to blow you away, and it's like, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, they reckon that 5K is about 6 months away, because the technology is just, exponentially it's quicker and quicker to improve on something that's already been refined.
Yeah, but the thing is, the stuff that you see now isn't proper like 4K anyway. I mean, it's sort of 4K. There's so many the problem with the new TVs is they've got there's so many different resolutions and different types of formats, and they're all kind of fighting each other. And definitely a lot of the stuff that you see on, Netflix that's not proper 4K. It might be 4K in pixel count, but it's not 4K in quality. That's not to say it doesn't look great. But yeah. I don't know what much to say about that.
You are listening to Yutani, the podcast for all things alien, AI, robotics, sci-fi, and technology. Remember to subscribe to yutani.studio and become a supporter on Patreon. Just head to www.patreon.com/StudioYutani.
So I think that's pretty much it about Alien. Like, I've really loved having this chat with you. I'm going to be chatting to Matt Hatton soon about 2001: A Space Odyssey. Is there anything you'd like to say about that film?
Yeah, I mean, that's just a great movie. I don't think it's my favorite Kubrick movie, but the print on that is that 4K. That's the best, I think. That's just beautiful. Like, everything about that is that film is beautiful.
Did you watch the Nolan unrestored version? Like, that's his way of saying it. Like, yeah. Yeah. Well, the one I've got is the 4K, the HDR. Yeah, that one. Yeah. Yeah, I've got that.
Yeah. Yeah. You thought it was good, I imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, there's no other way of saying this, but it's like a religious experience. It's like going into a church and just being overwhelmed by like what you're seeing. Although I don't feel that way when I'm in a church, but that film makes me feel that. Yeah.
No, that's exactly, it's weird you say that, because it's exactly what I said to a friend of mine after coming out of a screening of it about 15 years ago. I mean, for film goers, it's like going to church, and it does feel, I mean, the Pope had some very good things to say about it, so, I think he was one of the first people to stick up for it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because, the critics were very snooty about it, and I think he wrote something about it. He just goes, just said it. It kind of says everything. But you can read into that film a lot. But it's just beautifully made, and I wouldn't know what more to say about it. Apart from the transfer, it's probably the best one I've seen.
Having watched the unrestored version in the cinema, I really enjoyed the rough cutting between scenes. Everything's so smooth these days, But I do enjoy like switching from scene to scene. It kind of is a bit jagged. Even though like some people say, oh, it really takes me out of the film. For me, it kind of makes me pay more attention.
No, totally. You're like, where am I? You know, you're like, well, hang on, I've got to reorientate myself again.
Yeah, exactly. So you know, you feel like you're following a story, and then all of a sudden, like, you're put somewhere else. You're like, wait a minute, that's not where I was before. And it's so apparent with the monkeys in Africa in the first part, and then going up into space.
Yeah.
And just also seeing, like, the sets, they were just, even though, like, we're talking about, like, the cassette futurism of Alien, I really love the futurism in 2001: A Space Odyssey. The very, like, polished finish, everything's brand new and clean. You feel like people have been, like, scrubbing every single nook and cranny to make sure that it always looks its best, and kind of, it does remind me of the 50s. That sort of, like, style.
Yeah. Well, no, that's what's kind of cool about it, is you've got that kind of 50s, 60s aesthetic, in the same way that Clockwork Orange is like the 60s, 70s in the future, you know, but it's broken and sort of crap. But they're kind of, you know, it's similar, you know, it's not saying like this is the future, it's saying this is like the 60s in the future. You know, in the same way that, well, a friend of mine said this, but you go, you know, like in Total Recall, he doesn't go to Mars, he goes to Amsterdam, you know, which is where Paul Verhoeven is from, you know. So if you've ever been to Amsterdam, it's like, it's just like Total Recall, you know. It's like,
yeah, I have been.
yeah, you know what I mean. It's like, it's got that feel to it, hasn't it? You know, it's just, I mean, the whole film has got that. All Paul Verhoeven's work has got that feel to it. That kind of joyous decadence. So, I like it. It does capture that. The bit that I always really like is the actor, like Leonard Roster's bit, where he's kind of grilling. He's asking, is it Floyd? Like not Floyd. It's not Floyd. Is it? The sort of questions, trying to, you know, they've just arrived on the space station, and he's sort of sitting there.
Oh yeah.
You know, and he's just going, yes, you know.
Like interrogating him.
Interrogating him, you know. Yeah. It's like, I don't know anything. You know, like, I'm just here with the audience, not knowing anything, you know, like, you know. And so he's asking the questions that the audience are asking, and the guy's going, no, I'm not giving them to you. You've got to sit back and watch the picture. You know. It's really sort of, it's kind of, it's good.
I really liked the way they where was I reading it? I can't remember where. Actually, no, I was at the screening. Yeah, that's right. Sorry. So I went to go see 2001: A Space Odyssey, and they had the two main actors there, and it was soon after the guy who voiced Hal had died, so they dedicated the screening to him. But anyway, there's a scene where someone had left their jacket on the set, and they kind of showed it to Stanley Kubrick during the post-production, and he said, "Oh, that's easily fixed." So they had over the speaker someone say, you know, there's a jacket in the lounge that had been found and returned to Lost and Found. Yeah. To kind of like sort out why the jacket was there, and then suddenly it was not. So it's a really clever way, to figure out continuity.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the thing is, Kubrick, it's weird though, because Kubrick's not that big on continuity, you know. There were certain shots, there's a few shots in his films where the camera just jumps in the same, you know, almost the same setup, you know, so he's not actually a stickler for that. It's a weird one, you know, because there's like the famous, you know, like the helicopter blades in The Shining kind of thing, you know, it's like you don't care about that. And there's a bit in Clockwork Orange where you can see the microphone on someone's lapel, you know, and I think someone pointed out to him, and he goes, yeah, but again, it's like if you know what that is, like you work in film, you know, like and the audience won't know what that is, you know.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think I ever saw the microphone. I'm gonna have to watch it again.
Yeah, it's on the, like, you know, the bit when the old, may the hokey fly, you know, that bit where he's like,
Yeah.
the old, you know, the tramp sort of accosts him and, you know, and then the old, you know, the rest of them just beat the crap out of him. But in the bit where he sort of grabs him initially, where Malcolm McDowell's like looking into the water, you can see the microphone on the tramp's collar, like inside his jacket. But there's probably tons of that kind of crap. But again, it's, I don't, you know, it's only sort of interesting if you want to tell stories about it. Yeah. Oh, one thing, that's probably a good way to wrap it up. The sound, is incredible. No, the sound in Alien is incredible. The remastered sound. I'm not sure if it's the same as the Blu-ray, but I was very struck by the ambient sounds in when I watched it the last couple of times. There's lots of creaking and like it sounds like the place is haunted. You know,
it's like the haunted house in space.
Yeah, and it sounds like your house. It's like, is that in my room? Like, you know what I mean? It's really cool. That kind of that sort of thing with little creaks and groans that the ship makes.
And it's so much more noticeable. You can hear the heartbeat whenever the alien's about to attack. You can hear that sort of like increasing in the background along with the music. It's really cool because I noticed that in the Alien Covenant soundtrack, and I was like, why are they doing that? And then I watched the remastered version of Alien with headphones on, and I was like, oh, they did that originally. That's why. It was really good.
Yeah, it does sound, there was some just these weird hums. It sounded like my fridge was playing up or something, you know, but it's kind of pulsing. There's lots of nice, it's really very good. I mean, on top of the brilliant kind of screeching, sort of alien screeching, you know, and the more obvious things.
So out of a score out of 10, compared to other 4K versions of films that you've watched before, what would you give this?
Oh, it's like a 9.5 or a 10. I mean, I'd say it's like a 9 or a 9.5, like just because there'll be like another one that will be better, you know.
In about six months' time.
Yeah, compared to like there were two things, like the 2001, which I just think is a 10 out of 10, and I think the Dunkirk as well that I've seen is pretty much a 10 out of 10. I don't think it's quite as good as either of those, but it's like a 9.5. And I thoroughly recommend it.
I would say about the same. I've recently watched 2001 in 4K, and that was just absolutely amazing. I have complete reverence for that film, and not that I don't have complete reverence for Alien. It's a fantastic film, but you're right. There's just so much more was done better in the way that they kind of restored it. You could see that they were taking their time because they knew that it was a landmark. Being 50 years, and it was really important, and it shows. And I feel like with Alien, they're like, ooh, we better do something. And it's just that little tiny bit, you know, it could have been a little bit better, but you know, like you're right.
Also, the thing is also like 2001, the original prints. I mean, the effort that was put into it originally was much more than Alien, you know.
Yeah, so, because Ridley didn't know how big this film was going to become.
Exactly. I mean, there is don't get me wrong, there's a lot of care put into Alien, but 2001, especially when you see that 4K version, you are like, it's you know, there's some effects that don't look so hot or whatever, but for the time and the effort, it's unbelievable. You know, it's ridiculously precise, isn't it?
When he makes that jump from the pod to the ship, I was holding my breath the entire time. Like, that's how I feel when I'm watching 2001. Like, I'm right there with him. In Alien, I do feel like I'm just another passenger on the ship, kind of watching things happen.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the bit where he takes Hal apart, and as you said, the spacewalk bit is extremely tense. You know.
Yeah.
It was a friend of mine put it. Yeah, that film's all right. It's got a good bit in space. Yeah. It's just like, well, which bit? Oh, the bit where his mate dies. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, anyway. No, that's, I don't know. But what I like about that is it does have that, it isn't like just, I don't know, I like that, always like that about Kubrick movies, that it does have those bits in it. I don't, people always think Kubrick's sort of very pretentious, and he is, but he's also was a kid from the Bronx, so, you know what I mean? It's like, Full Metal Jacket, it's just the best swearing you've ever heard.
I love that film.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely
hilarious.
Love it. I usually don't like war films, but there's something about Full Metal Jacket that doesn't feel like the the stereotypical Hollywood war film. It shows everything.
Yeah, well, the thing about war films is that they very rarely tackle war. About what war is.
It glorifies it in a way, but he kind of has a very honest look at the way it affects people.
Yeah, exactly, and it's I do like seeing people getting, I like action as much as anyone, but I don't see, Saving Private Ryan for me isn't really a war film. It's a film about rescuing a guy. There's not that much about war in it. Whereas in Full Metal Jacket there is. It just talks about the politics of it and how it treats people, how it, dehumanizes people, and also how it's portrayed in the media. How it's filmed and how they, because he's a press photographer, isn't it? So, and I feel the same way about Starship Troopers. I think Starship Troopers is one of the best war films ever made, because it deals.
I'm gonna have to record a commentary with you
watching
that film sometime.
Yeah,
if you ever have time, because you're such a busy man.
Yeah. It's just when if I'm rendering or something, a couple of hours. But Starship Troopers. It's it's just about war, isn't it? It's like a propaganda film from the future.
Yeah.
And that's about, it's like, is the film going to talk about war or not? If it's just about a film about some person acting heroic, it's like, well, that's every film. It's not. And it's always good to have guns and explosions and everything, but I don't know. There is something, I don't know. Anyway,
it's not a full action hero sort of film where there's
no.
Because there's obviously losses and it kind of puts you in the fray, which I appreciate.
What, Starship Troopers or
Starship Troopers, yeah.
I mean, they're quite similar, because definitely at the end, you realise, it's like Full Metal Jacket, he's singing about Mickey Mouse, and at the end of Starship Troopers, you realise they're all fascists, and it's kind of similar. It's like there are no winners here,
That's right.
Yeah, it's sad, but anyway, that is it's a no. Let's do that another time.
Yes, maybe in another year's time or whatever you're free. But thank you so much for joining me. It's always a fun time to chat with you, Dom.
No, thanks, Clara.
And for everyone who follows Studio Yutani, I'll add some links in for Dom's YouTube channel and Instagram, and you can also stalk him on Facebook. He's a pretty funny guy on Facebook too. He shares really great stuff.
Thank you.
Always gives me a laugh or makes me spit out my coffee, so it's it's kind of good. All right. Wrapping it up. Is there anything else you want to say before we go?
No, I'm alright. No, thanks for having me, and no, I'll speak to you next time.
Awesome shit. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. And this is Mother and Dom Hailstone signing off. Ciao.
Bye.
Signing off.
Remember to like, share, or support Studio Utani on Patreon, and subscribe to utani.studio to stay up to date. Transmission complete.